Welcome to the Troubled Artists Podcast, Episode 13, Samuel Contreras, AKA FusionWolf.
Welcome back to the Troubled Artists Podcast. Today I am here with Sam Contreras, AKA FusionWolf, who is a local musician from the Chicagoland area. His latest album, Limbo, is available now on all music streaming services, and we'll get into all of that later in this interview. But thank you again, Sam, for being a part of the show. So before we begin, I do like to ask this question. Tell us in your own words, who is Sam Contreras?
Man, that's a tough one. Because obviously, I am me. I should know who I am, and I feel like either way, we're ever changing, ever evolving people. We're growing and we're changing as we go. But I'm a guy who loves music, the arts in general, who wants to somehow, some way make a positive impact on the world and wants to just see people enjoying their lives.
Yeah, I respect that. I'm the same way too. People just have to be creative, do what you love. If it's music, if it's film or writing, painting, poetry, whatever it is, So I'm glad that you're a supporter of the arts, just like me. I really like that. I appreciate that. So I am just curious, just like how you got into music or just being a musician in the first place. Was it something you discovered early in life or later on in life, or just tell us how you got into that?
So I knew when I was young, I just had a love for music in general. It was something I would obsess about, especially when I was a big gamer growing up. I would play PlayStation 2 games day and night, and I would remember some of my favorite songs from like soundtracks. But all that aside, I actually finally got into music when I was in high school, actually. And it's crazy because like there's been different things. I love baseball growing up, so I was a sports kid. As I was going into high school, I got really into acting and theater, and that's something that I was almost certain I was going to be pursuing. And I I don't want to like go too much into it. I think that is still something I keep in the back of my head is some another art form I love. But music is the one where I feel most myself, most at home, most like I'm enjoying what I'm doing with it because for one thing, music's always been escapism. You put on a pair of headphones, you find an album or a song that you absolutely love, you play it on repeat, and it becomes kind of the soundtrack for your life. It stays with you. Um, and while I was in high school doing theater as well, some of the people I knew in theater were also in choir. So eventually, I got a little interested in that. I decided to try out for it, and I ended up being in. They had some name for it, like advanced mixed chorus, but either way, I started doing that because either way, I did enjoy singing. Um, Usually, I would sing to myself whatever song was, in my head playing on repeat at the time, and just repeating doing that. I'm like, well, might as well try it. And so that those little like beginnings were how I got into music, but making my own music was in part because of my older brother. He was in a band years ago when he was in high school. He knew how to play guitar. He eventually started going to school for music production. So I got interested in that as well. Asked him about it, how he got started doing that kind of stuff, and eventually I took it upon myself to like learn guitar, um, music production. This is a combination of stuff in school. Like there was a class that our choir teacher actually ended up making he did a sound engineering class for like some of the students there, and that was a little bit of like the technical aspects of like how each of the different kinds of connections of uh, the cables and the more technical side of sound production. So all that being said, after high school, I took it upon myself to try to start putting some of the stuff that I released out into the world. Ever since I've been doing that, I'll share my stuff here and there. But at the end of the day, when you like create something you're really excited about and you want to show it to people, you want to and you do. And, at the very least, you could just ask them to listen to it. But the few times where you get some people who are really interested in it, that's always, it feels good, and I think keeps me going, still trying to make music. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know I've talked with other people before, but like whenever they try to release something, they're always like so scared of how the people would react, and that's kind of what stops them from showing off their work and that sort of thing. But I feel like, you kind of just have to go through it, just kind of just jump right in and get
yeah,
that response, and it's going to be positive and it's going to be negative, but that's just the part of the career that we've chosen, we're going to get like all kinds of feedback. But like you said, it's that passion. If we're very passionate about it, we'll just continue to go through with it, despite people telling us like, oh, it's bad or it's this or it's that, we
yeah.
just we just take that sort of constructive criticism or hate or whatever. We just try to look at the positive side of it and we just keep moving forward. So I'm glad that you're doing that. But you mentioned high school. It was you went to Taft High School, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah,
And you did too.
I
Am I
did.
correct?
I did. Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know if you remembered me, but yeah, like I also went
Oh,
to
I
Taft.
absolutely, I absolutely did, dude. I wasn't sure really how to bring it up because, at this point, a lot of those memories, especially for me, are a bit of a blur, but I'll remember the faces. And can I at least ask, weren't you in like, you did a lot of film in high school, didn't
Oh
you?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in
Yeah.
a film class. It was an
Okay. Yeah.
IB film class with Miss Dragoy. She was our film teacher. But yeah, so there's a lot of like the IB students there, like Veronica and Beatrice. I think you helped because I think she was also doing
Yeah.
music as well. So
Yes,
yeah,
she is.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, no, that was a fun time, like because that was around the time when you mentioned high school, and my sophomore year of high school is when I discovered my love for film. Like I did like a short film, and then from there that's when I ended up taking the IB film class, and we just continued to build our craft and learn the ins and outs of filmmaking. And then at the end of the year we had like that big like film showcase.
Showcase?
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
showcase, yeah. And
I do
that
remember.
was that was fun, and it was great just to
Yeah.
like show like, the work that we did. Like, it was I was kind of scared,
No, I believe it.
but yeah, like you said, kind of just got to jump right in and just just see what people think. And it was great. It was like the first time like I showed like something that I did like on a big screen with like hundreds of kids, watching it and
Yeah.
teachers and all that. It was great. It was fun. I overall Taft it was a great experience for me, and it seemed like it was good for you too, discovering, choir and all that stuff, and just learning like music. And I remember you talking about theater, because I did remember you being in like the theater program, and I think you're in like a
Yeah.
couple plays and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's pretty cool that like how our paths kind of connected
It's
so many
it's a
years
it's a
later.
small world, right?
Exactly. It's a small world, definitely. So I want to talk about, because you mentioned when I was messaging you through Instagram, you mentioned about like this live performance that you were doing, and I
Oh
saw
yeah.
like on your Instagram page that like you had like a couple of like clips of you like doing like a live show, or like I think it was like a showcase of musicians
Sure.
and stuff. Well,
Yeah.
what was that like? Just like playing in front of like an audience and like just meeting all these other musicians.
Um, it's something in the music world that I have wanted to experience, and I'm only just kind of getting started actually. Because around from so from that time when I started learning music production back in high school till this specific year, I think that's about 8, almost 9 years of like just kind of doing this stuff. And when I say music is like escapism for me, I mean it. Like I will hyper focus on whatever song I'm creating because the creative process to me is like the most fun part, right? The performance side has always been to me very 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 intimidating, and part of that is because of the difference in I guess any sort of acting, but especially since I did theater to music, right? Theater, you rehearse all your stuff, you have tech rehearsals to run the show exactly how it's supposed to go, and you have this team that you're surrounded by, whether you all get along or not, but you're able to actually like talking, collaborate with people, right? And it theater thrives off of that, especially with, I mean, it's different for everyone, but for me, besides the few people I had worked with, like you said, Beatrice Nix and a couple other people, I hadn't really done a lot of engaging with my community, whether it's online or here in Chicago. The very first performance I did was this year, February 7th, I want to say, and it was at this place called Metric Sound Studios in, I think, Chicago. Technically, it's like it might be the northern suburbs. Either way, that was, and I had prepared myself for it. I rehearsed everything on acoustic guitar. It was kind of a singer-songwriter kind of setup. And that first show was mainly, I think, for me to not to like say it was a throwaway, like it was a bad show, but I needed to get over it because I was fixating on it and it was stressing me out too much. So that one show, right after like it was done and everything, I'm like, okay, I can do this. And it's not as because I'll overthink a lot of things. That's just me. But I'm worried about how it's gonna go, how many people are gonna show up, all that kind of stuff. It happened, and I'm like, okay, it's just time to build off of this. And that's the tougher part is trying to figure out, how to get shows in and around your community. I was lucky because for the shows I've done so far, I've known the artists beforehand. A couple of them I met through this app. I don't know if you've heard of it, Threads. It's kind
Oh,
of
like
the
the Instagram like threads or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
It's
of that.
it's essentially kind of like Instagram's Twitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started checking that out and kind of just got hooked on it. I follow a decent amount of musicians on there and I do what I can to engage. I want to say so last year actually I met in person one of the artists I performed with at a couple of my shows so far. Her name is Maddie Hanna. She's like an indie pop, electro pop kind of artist, and her boyfriend Mike Lee. Mike Lee is a rapper from originally from Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and he's now living here in Chicago. I'm very grateful because they were a really good kind of first connection to be able to work with. They're very easygoing. They actually also, for a while, they're not really focused on it anymore, but they had their own YouTube channel and they actually did a podcast kind of like this too. Um, and that's actually where I got to meet Mike for the first time, and we hit it off. I think instantly. It's the connection I formed with them is one that I'm like, okay, it, this is whether I feel it or not, it's special, and I want to do what I can to cherish it, you know, strengthen it, and also get to meet more people, any artists really, but just people who like have a good vibe and that I would definitely be interested in working with in the future or performing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's like just like that one person that you connect with, and they can like almost kind of change your life or just give you like a whole new perspective. And it like I said, it is kind of, it's a little daunting, kind of meeting new people, but I mean, the good thing about technology, like there's messaging and how you mentioned threads and stuff like that. So it is much easier to communicate with people like all over the world, and that's kind of how it was with me, just, I mean, I was, fortunate enough when I went to DePaul University. I met so many other filmmaking friends and there was a lot of other, film communities, around here in Chicago, like networking events that I would go to and, just
Right.
kind of, just to help kind of get my foot in the door, and just meeting new people, lending my hand, like, oh, if you want me to help out on your short film or you help out on mine, vice versa, and,
Yeah.
and it goes for all artists too, with music and, painting, there's just a whole artistic community around us, you know. It's just sometimes we just have to take that first step, you know, introducing ourselves or showcasing our work. And, you know, sometimes, like I said, that could be scary for some people because we're afraid of that negative response. But
I know it was for me. It
hmm
really was.
yeah,
Um,
but again, it all comes down to just that passion. And if you really want to do it, then that can make the whole difference, you know. So I'm glad that
Definitely.
you're continuing to do what you love. Uh, so I want to talk about just your music in general. I listen to some of the stuff on like Spotify and Apple Music, you know. And it's really good, man. I really like it's sort of like this sort of techno vibe with it, you know. It was really cool. I think I was listening to one of the songs, Dopamine, I think was one of the last songs I
Yeah,
listened to.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just a cool like variety, almost like kind of 80s style, you know. It's just like really cool, you know, and just listening to that. What's sort of like your main like inspiration like when you write a song? I mean, I know it's different for every song that you write, but what's sort of like the main thing that drives you when writing a song?
I would say it's not the thing I usually start with, but what drives the song for me are kind of always the lyrics. That when I was getting into music, a big thing I wanted to do was to just have this kind of outlet for like myself because I was in like I don't know what other people would think, but me personally, my perspective, like I'm a quiet person. I don't really feel comfortable a lot of times opening up. A lot of times it's because I got just so much on my mind that I feel like I'm kind of like disengaged or disconnected from like whatever's going on in the real world. So having this kind of chance where I can actually, because when I would get into music, when I started getting into it, I would just write in my notebooks or journals at school a lot. And a lot of times it was like I should probably be taking notes in class, but I'm probably gonna do good enough on whatever test we're doing anyway. So I got something on my mind, I'm gonna write it down here. And kind of doing that a lot helped me get like the idea of like, okay, what I want to write about, lyrics are make or break. Like I won't release a song until like I know what I want to sing, and I've like sung it well enough a lot of times. And yeah, that's I mean, when it comes to like the driving force, like that's what drives the song forward for me.
Yeah, yeah, I understand, you know. It's like just sort of like the purpose of like what you're gonna say, what do you want to say to audiences listening to it, you know. And it, you know, goes back to any artist, like to film, you know, like what is it that you're trying to say, you know, the overall picture, you know. You got like these cool instruments or, you know, all that stuff and all that, but at the end of the day it all comes back to like this underlying message of what it is you're trying to say, you know. If it's about
Yeah,
like heartbreak or it's about like love or, you know, like depression, you know, there's just so many topics that a song can mention, you know. And same with like film or paintings or anything like that. That's why it's such a great way to just express yourself, you know. And I really enjoy, like I said, like people that are supportive of the arts and just continuing to do that. So that's really cool. What are sort of like the sort of struggles that you face so far in your career as a musician?
it's hard to pick just one. I feel like as small time artists, there kind of is a lot, but and it's different with everyone. But I'd say for me, I'd say consistency. Being that, like I said, music's been an escape. I would, when I work on music, kind of not really structure what I'm doing. It's just whatever song I was last working on, or if I'm like, I want to start something from scratch, I'll do that. Or I'll record guitar parts for this other song that I started months ago, I'll do that. So that is something that when I'm like putting together an album, that's where I have a lot more consistency because it's like, okay, I have a project that I want to focus on and I want to release. But even so, it's a little, it can be like a bit draining if you're stuck on like one song or one particular thing and it's like not sounding right. Or maybe you just like you wake up, you're not having a good day, you don't even really want to like sing your lyrics. You don't want to play your guitar for this song. You don't even want to hear it. So trying to find a balance for myself is something I'm looking a bit more into, if that makes sense. Because the time you spend outside of um your chosen art form is honestly just as important as spending time inside of it. Because even if that, like, we all draw from inspiration on like different things, and it's fine if you end up drawing inspiration on those kind of negative things, especially if they're on your mind. But if they don't really lead you anywhere, to if they don't give you anything that like you can actually create or like build off of, it's you're kind of stagnant, you're kind of stuck. I think consistency is the biggest thing, and just in general, like putting yourself out there. Uh, I remember, small story. I remember one time I did invite someone over from high school, actually. As this kid who played bass, and he was into like a lot of old school punk music, like the Sex Pistols and the Clash. I think he also liked Elvis Costello or something like that. So we're just jamming out one day after school. He brings over his bass, I'm playing guitar. And even in, like, I had been learning guitar for maybe 8 months at that point. I was still mostly a beginner. Even then, even though we're playing literally punk music, which thrives off of its sloppiness and energy, I felt incompetent. I felt like I wasn't like keeping up as a musician. And I I bring it up because honestly, it's been on my mind like for the past couple weeks, and I'm like, man, if I had just, I feel like I was overthinking that a lot. I feel like I wasn't as bad as I thought, because since I didn't have anybody to tell me like, hey, you're doing cool. I was stuck in my head, and I never ended up like talking to this guy again to jam out. And I think I lost kind of like a chance to connect with music, on to connect with someone about music. Um, and it sucks because I'll just to say it, like bands are a huge part of my music love. The role of a band, a singer, guitarist, drummer. I love how people, bassist. I love how that's all put together. I'm a one man show, so I'm kind of trying to do everything at once. But the times where you get to share music with people are the best, and play music, and that's something that I struggled with because I was overthinking it, and I wasn't fully confident in my own abilities. And I told myself the next time that ever happens, like, I got to make sure I am ready on whatever I can bring to the table as a musician.
Yeah. I completely understand. I mean, I overthink so much as well. Um, just, like when I'm on set directing, there could be like, like sometimes 10 people, 20 people, however many people I'm directing, like it can be a little overwhelming at times, and you kind of have to just step back and just, like take a deep breath, just tell yourself it's going to be all right, just do the best you can. And at the end of the day, just have fun. We're doing this, like, just starting out, we're doing it like not for like money or anything, and, we're
Yeah.
just doing it just to connect with people, to make a creative project of some sort, and, just show it to people, and that's what we're doing at the end of the day, like we're just showing our creativity. And, it can be a little overwhelming at times, like there are some days where you kind of wake up and like, what the heck am I doing? Like, am I good enough? Am I this? Am I that? What if this happens? What if that happens? And, like, so I've been very fortunate enough to surround myself with other people that are supportive of my dreams, like the film students that I've met, and especially my family. They've always been very supportive. So I feel very fortunate in that part, and it's such a great feeling, just for like one person, to say, hey, good job, or hey, I like this, keep going. Even though it's just like one person, you have no idea like how much that can mean to someone, and they may just say just just to be nice, but they may not understand just how much their words meant to you. And just having that positive energy can just continue to go forward, despite these sort of other challenges that you face in life, because, yeah, life happens, things happen, bad things, but we just push through. And a lot of that just comes from our positive mindset, because if we think negative, then negative things are going to happen, or we'll never see the positive things happen because we're constantly thinking negative, so we just got to keep on moving. We just got to keep on pursuing that love and just take what people have to say, because at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, it's this creativity is what makes us who we are. And it's just,
Absolutely.
mhm. So, I did want to talk about like the album you recently released, Limbo. What was kind of like the inspiration for that, because I know it's like something you just recently released, and I'm interested to hear what that was all about.
So I, when it comes to creating music, I think a lot about just the structure, kind of the ordering of albums. I love listening to like a good album by like a great artist band, you know. And it's I'd say that's kind of one of the main things I've wanted to do is release music in album form. Like imagining having, a catalog of all the different eras of albums that an artist goes through. And for this one, I kind of say in a way this was an album that I didn't necessarily want to make, but I had to make. And that's because I have different albums I have structured out, and like I have the demos for the tracks, and like there's songs that like if I just focused on them I could finish, right? Because I've always been so inconsistent with my creativity, it's kind of some songs get pushed farther and farther back to when it's like, am I ever even going to release them, right? And around, so I don't want to go too much into like, I don't want to go too much in the backstory, but long story short, 2022 was a rough year for me personally. I was dealing with a lot of mental stuff that just was on my mind, and I didn't really have an outlet for it outside of music. It was overwhelming me. I was going to college at the time. That was overwhelming me. I was trying to make friends in an environment that I've hadn't been in for a long time. A lot of what I was saying earlier, overthinking, a lot of doubting myself, not being comfortable in my own skin. It really, really affected me. And by the end of 2022, I ended up dropping out of college, just started working jobs to pay, have a source of income for myself. And I wanted to, release more music. I didn't have a clear path on which album I wanted to, what kind of album I wanted to make. By 2024, I had ended up making a song on Limbo. It's called Remember, and that song was the song that kind of sparked the interest for this album. It's a song that's a lot more in that techno-y, I'd say like dreamy, euphoric pop kind of realm. I didn't think that was going to be the necessarily like direction of the album, but I felt this song and I was like, okay, whatever I release next, I want this to be part of it. So throughout 2024, I started trying to focus in on certain songs, certain tracks I was vibing with. And as I was working on it and as the album started to come together, Limbo, and I forget the real definition of it. I know it's a place outside of space and time where like the soul is, they say in limbo. That kind of concept, though, was actually inspired by my friend Beatrice Nix, because I don't want to spoil her stuff, but in our discussions with her music, we've talked about the nine circles of hell, right? And I'm pretty sure the first one is referred to as limbo or something along those lines. Through that kind of concept, I thought about where I was as an artist and as a person at the time. And to me, Limbo, this album is for anyone out there who feels like they are kind of stuck, or more importantly, they're like me in that the one thing they have struggled to do their entire life is move on from the past, from people, from places you've been. You have struggled to move on because, and knowing me, like I get hung up on the memories of people, of just longing to see them. And I feel like a lot of times, like if I'm hanging out with people, the moment that we've like parted ways, we're like, okay, bye, or like I get home, it's like there's just this rush of like silence and like thoughts, and you're like, now what? Like, what do I do? Where do I go? So this album, it tells that desire to move on quite often, and it talks about like just the honest struggles with that, the honest struggle of accepting it, of actually doing it, what that looks like, what that feels like. The album itself, track order wise, is kind of this downward spiral from the first track to the last track. It's the very first track on the album. It's supposed to be your dreams, your happiness, your that euphoric reality of like everything you want. It's all in that song. And when you get to the end of the album, that last song, you're kind of realizing you're kind of accepting, okay, this is my current reality, which is nowhere near that euphoric, um, all those dreams I want to achieve. And I feel that it if there's people out there who relate to that idea of struggling to move on, or struggling to be, and accept things, I think they'll very much enjoy this album. And I think I said this in a little video I try to record for it, but I like to think of this album as for people who want to be something more than what they are, meaning like, yes, I'm a musician. Can my music, is there any chance that my music has just enough of a positive impact to where you hear it and all of a sudden it clicks something in your brain that changes your perspective on something and helps you heal, move on, or get over something that was initially blocking you? And if there's a chance for any of that, like that's why I want to make music, to have that positive impact. But yeah, with all that being said, it's an album that I didn't want to make, but I had to, and I am very happy with how it turned.
That's great, man. That's really great. Like I said, it all goes back to just uh, like those words, people hearing words and like creating like that positive mindset. Like it can change something in them and change, like you said, change their perspective. And yeah, that's the power of art. That's how powerful art is. And how it can
Absolutely.
change the world. The stuff that we look at, the films that we watch, the stuff that we write, the music that we make. It's such a powerful tool. And in a lot of my interviews, we talk about like AI and how
Mm,
like the that sort of technology is like it's growing rapidly. But
yeah,
it's I always tell them, like it's a tool definitely, but at the same time it can't like we can't let it overtake us. We have to still have our originality behind it, and we
absolutely.
can't just keep that because, I see a whole bunch of like advertisements about like, AI, you can make AI videos, AI images, AI
Yeah,
music, AI this, AI that. And
anything.
yeah, it can, but it's missing that sort of human connection, it kind of
Yeah,
just like picks like these little like stereotypes and stuff like that and just make something around that just based off of coding and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know like how much you know about the whole AI
oh, I
world, but
do. I
yeah,
do.
it's yeah,
It's not something I have done much research into. I've wanted to, for just the purpose of like it seems like it's going to be around here. But like you're saying, like that human element, that's what real art and good art like has. You can connect with it on that way. Again, I don't want to, I don't intend to use it. I've still have to this day have never logged into ChatGPT, but we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, it's a complicated topic. It's not something that I'll admit I've looked up like I think photo generators or something like that. There was some app I had where you could like generate random photos yourself with like pre-existing selfies, and like that's cool. It's pretty cool, but if I could like I would much rather find like a good artist like on Instagram and be like, hey, could you do self portraits or something like that? Actually drawn on, sketched out kind of art, like real, like as you said, human art.
Yep. Yeah. I appreciate that you would do that. So, but yeah, so it's a love-hate thing with AI, and it's a good like, kind of like brainstorm thing, that type of thing, if you need like an idea or two, but just
Yeah,
remember like to not let it consume your life, your art, and just
don't
spit out.
don't let it drive the project. You drive the project, not the AI.
There you go. Exactly. Well said. Well said. Um, I am curious, because I did want to ask this, just like, so your stage name, Fusion Wolf, how did you land on that name? Was it like just how did that come about?
um I'm looking around because I know I took a picture of it too. I literally, and it was probably during high school sometime. I like made lists, like I took a piece of paper, made a list of like different words that I just think sound cool, and I categorized them into like colors, adjectives, verbs, whatever I did. Wrote as many things as I could out of those, and the one that I connected the most with was Fusion Wolf. I was a science nerd in some aspects when I was a kid. I still am. So if I'm correct, it's fusion that's the chemical, the whatever reaction that the sun creates for its energy. And then wolf, I love animals, and my favorite animal, I think it started when I heard some story about Yellowstone. They released like four wolves into the wild parks of Yellowstone. Within the next 5 years, would you call it, the climate, the overall park changed for the better because of them, right? So when I relate it to myself, I think of, for the fusion part, I think of just all the different styles of music I love. I grew up in a household that played predominantly rock music, a little bit of country, a lot of like gospel-y or like Christian kind of rock, I'd say. And that's one part of my music that I enjoyed. But as I went through life, I think by like I'd say actually by college, I was starting to get into rap. I found some of my favorite pop artists like just getting out of high school. I remember seeing one in concert maybe like 2 or 3 months after I first discovered them. This band called Aquilo. They're from the UK, and they were doing a North American tour. Um, and a bunch of electronic stuff in between here. So all of that's to say, like the fusion part is like, okay, that's my sound. I'm gonna combine whatever I like into a song somehow, some way, and I don't care how long it takes. I'm gonna find a way. The wolf part is, I guess, I always just say it's me if I'm like personifying myself. Like, um, I I've gone on like tangents on some point of like searching up like animals, like what's the daily life of a wolf and stuff like that. But they're creatures who are very like reserved. They kind of have this dignity to them. They're obviously though ferocious. They're predators. They will often, their purpose is to find a mate and form their own pack. And that's in a way something I want to do, is if I'm kind of leading my music as is, the people who are my fans of my music, if I have any out there, they're part of the pack, and we all try to look out for each other and try to stick up for one another, try to make each other have a bit of a better day and smile a little more. So
Wow, that's that's really cool. Just like it's like a whole like combination, just like of your your love for like science, and then just like how you describe yourself being a wolf and finding a pack. It's really cool, you know. I mean, it also it just sounds cool, you know. Fusion Wolf, you know. It's just such a cool name, you know. I just thought it was just, you know, sometimes people just kind of just pick two random words that sound cool and put it together, but and
Which,
yeah, it is what you did, yeah, but at the
yeah,
same time, it still connects with who you are as a person, you know. So it it's just really cool, like how, you know, there's such a great backstory to it because it's essentially you.
it does, like, it does to me feel like, the meaning came after the name. And I'm fine with that, but that is what I kind of see it as. Like, I loved how it sounded. And then as I started releasing music, I'm like, you know what? This name does speak to me on a deeper level in a way. I don't really like with that, it's not going to change. I'm going to keep it and be Fusion Wolf. So, yeah.
There you go. There you go. Do you have any like new songs or albums in the works right now that you'd like to share or anything?
Um, I it might be cliche to say, but like I am always working on stuff here and there. There's songs that like are really like one or two parts away from being like done. But I've always, like I said, I've been a person who likes to release music kind of as an album, as a project, or at least as an EP. This might be coming more from my dad, and for one thing, I'm grateful. My parents have been very supportive of my music, and I do my best not to take that for granted. When they get to talk to me about my music, my dad will mention that when I release singles, they're not as engaging as a full album. I understand why. Like if you're making an album, you have a story that even if it's not so direct, like especially with the order of the songs, like there's something you want to say with it. There's something in there in the whole world of the album that is like important to get across. So I do intend to release, more albums in the future. There is nothing yet. There may be a song or two on the way that I'm hoping to finish, potentially by October, because I have a special show coming up in October with who I mentioned earlier, Mike Lee and Maddie Hanna. Together, they're known as Elysium Nights, and they're actually putting on their first little like festival show where they're getting a bunch of artists that they've worked with, and they're doing like an all day kind of thing. So that's about 2 months away. All I can say is for Limbo, I am trying slowly but surely to start working on some music videos for the album.
Mm.
And that's something I'm excited about because I I'll be honest, I don't watch music videos as much as I want to say I do. I don't know why. I think it just doesn't cross my mind as often, but I've always appreciated them, and it's a very direct, audio to visual representation. And like it's simple, but like that really goes a long way for like creating more to a song that you've made, having that video aspect of it. So I'm hoping to get one out by next month in August, and I'm at least hoping to get three out of this album, but hopefully more. So, and that's just gonna have to come within the next couple months, I'd say. So, stay tuned for that.
That's really cool, you know. Wanting to make music videos, you know. And hey, if you need any help or any advice, you know, just just let me know. I'll I
You are a film person, so
yeah,
you essentially could direct a music video even if you wanted to, couldn't
yeah.
you?
I haven't had much experience with music videos per se, but I mean, I've done more like narrative stuff, but
Yeah.
like again, I'm always open to try new things, you know, like because I remember like the only like sort of quote unquote music videos that I did was like when I was just starting out. It was essentially just
Mm.
like me and my cousins just like lip syncing to to just random, you know, songs from the 2010s, you know, so
That's
that's how it
you're on the
started.
right track.
But but yeah, no, I'd love to be like a help if you know if you have any questions or anything like that, I'd be more than welcome
I
to.
I definitely think I will, but whenever that comes up, I will definitely definitely look to you for your advice.
Yeah.
I definitely will.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Um, Before we sign off, is there any advice that you want to share to any up and coming artist or musician out there that's just starting out?
Um, the first thing that comes to my mind, because I think there was, I think it was something you were saying about the support you get from people, right? And I did want to say something about that. So, long story short, I feel like one thing I didn't realize was like there were times where I would share my music with people, like coworkers or like friends, and I would eventually, go and ask them like, hey, did they listen to it and what they think of whatever. That kind of like you absolutely deserve to hear praise about your work if you get it. Like you should feel good about the fact that your art makes an impact. I worry that it is something I kind of was a bit addicted to. Like that craving of like I need to show this to people because I need to hear good things. I need to hear that I'm releasing stuff that people actually like and want to hear. And I feel like chasing that or trying too hard to receive that will kind of it's not a healthy thing. It's something that can I feel like because one, if you don't get it, you're going to be disappointed. And two, there's always a chance that some people might not be telling the truth. Um, and all that's to say is like this is kind of a direct thing, but like, and I realized this. When I share music with people, I don't ask them afterwards, did they listen to it? Because if they did listen to it and they actually genuinely liked it, then they will tell me. They will go out of their way or come to me or message me and say, "Hey, I listened to this. I liked it. Yada yada yada." Um, the best kind of like praise you can get is the stuff that comes out of nowhere, and it might even be from someone you just don't know, a random stranger in public or on the internet. And that's not to say be grateful when you have friends and family who support your stuff, but don't let that direct you. You're the one making the calls on your art, and just because people liked it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. It's still your art, and like anything, it moves on, it evolves, and you should absolutely challenge yourself and try to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Um, and not let any of those potential bad comments about it affect you. You should make the art that you want to hear for yourself, and it should, if other people listen to it, then they should be able to create their own world in their head and understand like this is how it makes me feel. I like how it makes me feel too. You're it's a weird battle of making it for yourself, but also making sure like it's accessible. Like the people you want to listen to it are gonna listen to it. So at the end of the day, you know what you want, and you shouldn't try to talk yourself out of it. You should go and do what you want. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Advice is
go.
a weird thing to give when you're a small time artist, I
Right.
guess, as myself,
Right, but
right?
it's just I feel like it's just great to hear just like other people's perspective on things, just
Yeah,
to, because you never know, like, like the words you just said could have just sparked someone's creativity right then and there, like you never know just how impactful your words can be. And like I said, it just goes back to the power of art, the power of words, just like what we say, what we do, what we create, is just a powerful thing. And I'm glad that you're finding success in the music that you're making, and you're continuing to do what you love, and every artist out there, just continue to do what you love, and if there are days where you kind of need to just kind of step back a little bit and, take a deep breath, that's totally fine, I mean, creativity can't run in us 24/7, we're going to have those days where we just kind of have to step back and, take a breather, and that's perfectly fine.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's good that you're still doing what you love. So, yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Troubled Artists podcast. Have a great day.